and welcome to Beyond the Shelf with OPL. We're very excited again for you to join us. I am Jenny.
And I am Dawn.
This month, we wanted to narrow in on a topic that is near and dear to both of us, and that is adaptations and retellings of books into movies and TV shows. At least I love reading a book and then watching the movie and then basically tearing it apart.
And it's definitely in that order, reading the book and then watching the movie.
Usually. There are times that I have seen the movie first, and there are at least two movies that I prefer over the books, which is very rare, and I can talk about those, but mostly it's always books. 98% of the time, books over movies.
So I think last time I had mentioned that I had watched Coraline several times, but had never read the book. So that's one of those instances where it happens in the other order, where you do the movie first and then the book. And definitely for me, Lord of the Rings was one of those. I actually wasn't even interested in the movies, but one of my high school friends dragged me to it. And I instantly fell in love with the Fellowship of the Ring. And it wasn't actually until years later that I read any Tolkien, but definitely it's a same amount of love for both formats for me.
I think that that's fair. I think Lord of the Rings would be more of an exception to the rule of book being better than the movie because that was so well done. And it was made into 3 movies. Of course, it is 3 books as well, but it's when you try to take an 800-page book and put it into 120 minutes, so much gets lost, and it does not work that well.
And that's the ideal thing is you want the filmmakers to put every detail that made the book so great into a movie. And how do you do that?
I don't know.
We are not filmmakers.
Obviously. But I can tell you a couple that have done very well, and that would be S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. I grew up watching that movie. It's way before your time. It was the 80s. What can I say? But it was a great movie. It had Tom Cruise in it and Emilio Estevez and all of my heartthrobs from the 80s. But I read the book just fairly recently, just within the last couple of years, and I had never read the book. And it quoted so much from the book with the movie, almost verbatim, and it was fantastically done. So that one I really do appreciate.
That's awesome. The book isn't always better. There are very tiny exceptions for the movie being better.
That's true. One of those would be Warm Bodies. I don't remember the author. I loved the movie. Absolutely loved the movie. And then when I read the book, I was a little bit let down, not going to lie. It's a zombie movie. It's a feel-good zombie movie. It's kind of weird. It really is. But I really liked the movie a lot, and I was kind of disappointed when I read the book after seeing the movie.
I have to say you just blew my mind because I did not know Warm Bodies was a book. I just looked it up. The author is Isaac Marion, and I did see the movie because I have a thing about zombies. It's one of my interests.
Me too. That's amazing. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. And so, I had seen the movie. I had no idea it was a book. So, Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion is apparently described as a zombie romance, which is a genre that we all need in our lives, maybe.
Absolutely. And the other one, which incidentally is also a zombie movie, was World War Z. I loved World War Z, but the book is titled World War Z. It is nothing like the movie, not even a little bit. And so that was very odd to me. And maybe I would have liked the book better if I didn't go in with the expectation of it being like the movie, because I had seen the movie first, which is Brad Pitt. You can't go wrong with Brad Pitt, I guess. I don't know. He's not my favorite. Some of my friends are they love him. I think he's okay. He's no George Clooney. But I love World War Z, the movie, and the book felt a little flat for me. Have you read the book or seen the movie?
I think I bought the book secondhand from a thrift store. I don't know that I've cracked it open. It's one of those ambitions to one day read, but the book is thick.
It is.
It's big. And my understanding is it's a lot of detail and numbers If I don't know.
There's a lot. It's almost like an interview type of thing that goes on and on and on. So I was kind of disappointed in the book. And like I said, I would love to get your opinion on it once you read it and see. It's only by title that, in my opinion, that the movie and the book share.
Okay.
That's it.
That was my understanding before, so you just kind of confirmed that. So recently, Where the Crawdads Sing was made into a movie. I have not seen the movie. I've not read the book, but it is a very popular book. I think it was one of our book club books in the past. Oh, so I'm going to go ahead and guess you have read Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens.
I have read it. And the reason I read it actually was it was one of Reese Witherspoon's book club books. And I read it and I loved it. It was definitely a 5-star read for me. I loved the characters. I love mysteries, which are obviously plot-driven books. But if I can get a good character-driven book, and I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the characters of Where the Crawdads Sing, and that makes a huge difference to me. If I can't connect with the characters, I'm not usually enjoying the book. But I thought this was really done. I mean, there's some far-fetched things to it because I'm not going to give spoilers away, but it does kind of talk about a 5-year-old being on their own at like 5 years old. And so that's kind of hard to swallow, but I do believe that there probably are children that are abandoned at a rather young age.
As of right now, when we're recording this, Rotten Tomatoes has not given it a very good review, but audience reviews are pretty high. So,
you know, when I look at Rotten Tomatoes and different things like that, I always want to see what the audience thinks over the critics. I seldom agree with the critics. Very rarely do we ever line up in our taste in books or movies. I like to see what the general pop set thinks because those are my people. Those are the people that are going to watch it and give an honest opinion on it without it being this whole cinematic experience or whatever. It just has to be a good film or a good book.
So to jump back over to the zombies conversation, one author whose books have been told and retold and adapted literally hundreds of times is Jane Austen. And I say zombies because Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which I adored. I just love how the author, what's his name? Seth Grahame-Smith. He like incorporated and changed the characters enough just to be like, instead of the Bennett sisters having that like proper etiquette, their like attraction for suitors is that they can fight zombies. I just love it so much.
Have you read all of them? It's like a series of 3, I believe. I've only read the first one. And it did bring me joy, but it made me laugh too, because there are absolutely direct quotes from Pride and Prejudice in it, which was one of my favorite books. I love Jane Austen. And I was reading an article once about what would Jane Austen think about this adaptation, and they said they think that she would have loved it because she was really ahead of her time, and she probably really would have appreciated the Pride and Prejudice and zombies. Sounds ridiculous, I know. I think there's a movie called Abraham Lincoln.
Vampire Hunter?
Yes, which also sounds ridiculous.
Which is also one of Seth Grahame-Smith's books. And then there's another one in that series. It's called Unholy Night, and I think it's like an Arabian Nights retelling. Yeah. I love the idea of like those classic historical figures, fiction or nonfiction, and then like putting them into that supernatural element is just, we're both sitting here grinning. It just brings joy to take, something that's a little weird, a little goofy, and put it in that classic story that you know.
I agree. And it's fun. I mean, you have to suspend reality. You have to do that with a lot of reading anyhow. But it's silly and it's fun and it can be lighthearted. Obviously, killing zombies probably doesn't come across as real lighthearted. But if it's something that you don't do in your normal life, I don't know what you do on the weekends, Dawn, but I'm assuming you don't go zombie hunting. So it is fun to delve into those sort of things.
So I had to look it up because I wanted to know, like, we all can think of a Jane Austen book title off the top of our heads, but I had to look up, like, how many adaptations are there actually. And what I found is that there are literally over 100 authors. Some of them have written more than one book that is some adaptation or variation of a Jane Austen title. And if vampires are your thing, you can have Darcy be a vampire if you really want to read that kind of thing. One of the interesting YA ones, young adult YA, is one called Pride by E.B. Zaboy. And the Bennett sisters they live in the inner city. And so it takes that same concept, but puts it into a more modern setting. And it's fun and different. And I really enjoy how authors like stretch our imaginations in that way.
I have not read a whole lot of adaptations. I did read The Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I know that there have been a lot of adaptations of Agatha Christie, which I don't know how I feel about that because she's probably my all-time favorite author, and she is called the Queen of Suspense for a reason, and she was brilliant. And so rewriting her stuff, I don't know if I would appreciate it the way I'm supposed to because I just loved her so much. So I'm not sure. I haven't read a lot of adaptations of her, but I know a lot have been done of her.
You have any thoughts on the film adaptations of some of her things that have come out recently? Death on the Nile?
Yeah, I saw it. So Death on the Nile, great book. Of course, and I do like Hercule Poirot, although Miss Marple's my favorite Agatha Christie character. Death on the Nile got a little weird to me, and I'm going to tell you why. The beginning of it takes place in a club, like in the 40s, and they do like this whole little dirty dancing scene that I was like, no, I'm sorry. That is so ridiculous. That didn't even jive with what Agatha Christie's book was. And it just didn't even make any sense to me. And they had this whole part with Hercule Poirot, with his like kind of falling in love with somebody, and like it had this thing about his mustaches. And it's like, this was never in any of her books. I don't know. I just think that sometimes artistic license just goes too far. And I was very disappointed in the movie Death on the Nile.
Okay. All right.
Someday I'll tell you how I really feel about it.
Hot takes from Jenny today. Now, we really enjoyed, my husband and I listened to the audiobook of Murder on the Orient Express. And literally, when the book ended, you got to the whole conclusion, the big reveal, and we sat in silence for several minutes because it was totally unexpected, which just speaks to Agatha Christie's like total talent and everything. And there have been several film adaptations of Murder on the Orient Express. I think the only one that I've seen was the most recent one that had Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. But
Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp was the victim, right?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure Johnny Depp was the victim, yeah.
I just remember being absolutely stunned at the end of that book.
I agree. I think that's probably my favorite Agatha Christie book, and it was that one, and then There Were None. Those are just brilliant. They're so good. She was amazing. Anyhow, I know that there's been other adaptations of movies. I think like Jane Eyre, that's been redone a whole bunch of times. Let me think. Okay, so that's what it was. Charlotte Bronte, there was a new book that just came out fairly recently called The Wife Upstairs. And it was supposed to be let me tell you, loose adaptation of Jane Eyre. The Wife Upstairs was okay. If you are you need to separate it though, because if you are expecting a Jane Eyre, I think you'll be disappointed.
Okay, so it's just like, here's the general idea of Jane Eyre, and let me just not pretend, I don't want to insult the author, but like take that general idea and then make a whole new story.
Yeah, it just wasn't, it fell a little flat for me. Now that author was Rachel Hawkins, and I would probably read her again. I don't like to write off authors, write them off. I don't like to do that. on my first go round, I like to give them a second chance. So I would probably read her again and see. But The Wife Upstairs wasn't a favorite.
It didn't do it for you.
No.
Okay. Do you do or read much Doyle, Sherlock Holmes fan at all?
You know, I always have meant to, but I really, honestly, I've only read a couple of his. And I did like Sherlock Holmes. I can't remember what I read now. It was something with the number 4.
I think it's The Sign of 4.
Yes, I think that was it. I did read that one, and I found it highly interesting because I did not know that Sherlock Holmes was like addicted to cocaine. And so he would use that and then he would have like all these revelations. And so I found that very interesting because I didn't know that. That was new information to me when I read that.
My favorite tidbit about Sherlock Holmes is that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle didn't actually like the character, and he tried to kill him off, but fans were so like enthralled. They were like, "No, Sherlock lived. You have to tell us what happened." That he brought him back. And I think it's such, like, Sherlock Holmes is almost like ingrained into our culture that like if somebody we have like obviously Sherlock kind of phrasing that we say when somebody like realizes something. There's like these classics that we just have become so much a part of our culture. And there have been several different Sherlock Holmes adaptations, so like into movies. The Robert Downey Jr. one, which I've not seen. I think it looks like, at least from what the trailers, that he kind of plays Sherlock as like a little bit goofier. A lighthearted Sherlock Holmes is a different take for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There was one, I think my kids watched it. Maybe you know, it was on PBS and it was about a dog. Do you know what I'm talking about? He was definitely
was it The Hounds of Baskerville?
No. It was a children's. Are you
thinking of Wishbone?
Yes, Wishbone. I would consider that like a shirt because he dressed up like Sherlock. That was a long time ago. I just thought of that.
That was in the 90s.
Yeah, that was a lot. You know, I saw this meme the other day that somebody mentioned something that happened 30 years ago, and my mind went straight to the 70s, and I realized they meant 1990. And then I got to lay down and take a nap because that's ridiculous.
For sure. One of my favorite Sherlock adaptations is BBC's Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes. I really enjoyed that. And that's where I really got to know the actors from that show. I got to know them watching that and then seeing them in other things. Both of them, interestingly, got to be in The Hobbit. So getting to see the characters that way and how everybody plays the characters differently, or their interpretation of what the authors originally meant, is really great. And recently, I don't know if you've seen Enola Holmes.
Yes, on Netflix.
Yes, so
I really liked it.
That's actually an adaptation from a book too. That's a children's series, which is so great. And I think it's more playful, being that it is a children's series. So you still get like the Holmes like deduction and everything, but it's more playful and obviously child friendly.
You mentioned The Hobbit. So since you're a fan, obviously, of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, have you read the Hobbit book?
I have. And
you saw the movie, I'm assuming. So
movies?
Movies? Which I thought was ridiculous that they took one book and made it into 3 movies, but I never watched the movies. So I want to know what your opinion is.
So I think it's a Hollywood thing, you know, that they were like, there are 3 Lord of the Rings movies, so we're going to take this other Tolkien thing and we're going to make 3 epic films out of it as well. And I do really feel like they drew it out because The Hobbit itself is very short.
He's a hobbit. Of course he's short.
That pun was not intended, but it was beautiful. I am now proud. Yeah, so the book was short. And it's a great read. A lot of people will read that to their kids. It's not too scary for that. But the movies, I definitely think that like they really did put The Hobbit on steroids in order to make 3 epic films out of it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I loved the Hobbit book. Lord of the Rings, to be honest, I never even finished the 3rd one. I read the first 2, and then, I don't know, when you have to take 3 pages to describe a tree, that's just too much for me. I need more.
I personally love trees. I have a statue of Treebeard on my desk right now. Jenny is laughing. So Lord of the Rings is just my favorite.
I know that there's a couple of other books that have just been turned into slash movie or streaming. Well, and I've watched The Terminal List by Jack Carr. It's on Amazon Prime right now. And it stars Chris Pratt. I read the book because I saw it was coming out. As soon as I see something's coming out and it's based on a book, I try to read the book. So I read the book and then I watched the show and I really liked it. It is not, if you have any kind of weak stomach, it has probably one of the most graphic death scenes I have ever seen in a movie. And I've watched a lot of movies. So that might be something you want to avoid, but honestly, I really like The Terminal List, and it's on Amazon. And then my daughter and I just watched The Gray Man, and it's a book by Mark Greaney, and I have not read that book yet, but the Netflix movie is really good, and it stars Ryan Gosling, and
so that's like automatically like 3 stars at least, right?
A little bit of eye candy while you're watching this serious movie doesn't hurt. So yeah, it was a really good movie.
So there's a couple of teen books that have been translated into shows. Right now, Heartstopper, which is by Alice Oseman, is on Netflix. And that is a couple of novels that they've turned into a TV series. Another one that was really popular was the Jenny Han, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And she wrote 3 or 4 books that translated into really popular, I believe, TV series on Netflix. Of course, upcoming, I'm super pumped about, is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. I watched the trailer and I was like so pumped up just to watch it. Sometimes when you see that trailer, like it gets your heart going, your blood pumping. You're like excited for it to see the characters that you were familiar with before, and they're being like shown in a whole new light. I'm really excited about that.
That is how I felt when I saw that episode 7 of Star Wars was coming out, because it showed Harrison Ford and Chewbacca, and I think he says this one thing, "Chewie, we're home." I was so excited and I was so thrilled, and then I found out how it ended, and yeah, didn't watch it.
That was not for you.
Nope.
Yeah. So next, we would like to share the last few interviews from our Artist Festival. First, we have Jenny talking with Sam Scheller. Sam is a retired teacher and a local potter.
All right, so I'm talking to Sam Scheller.
Yes.
Thanks for being here today.
Happy to be here.
Sam has the most beautiful pottery, and it's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
So, Sam, I'd like to ask you, how did you get into throwing pottery?
Well, I started at Ashland College in '65. I took my first pottery class in '66, so I've been doing it 56 years.
That's amazing.
And Miss Miller was my first teacher. I still remember her. And it was in a very small little building from World War II. They call them little Quonset huts. So it was a very small building, but it had everything we needed. I started in a small Amico stand-up kick wheel and a small treadle wheel, stand-up treadle wheel. So I was always standing up. Back then I could do that pretty easily, so that's my main thing. But of course we had to start off doing, the very first project we had to go dig our own clay and make a pinch pot.
Did you say you had to dig your own clay?
You had to go to the creek and dig your own clay and make a pinch pot.
Wow.
So when I taught for 40 years at Smithville, they had to go down to the creek in Smithville and dig their own clay and make a pinch pot.
So you mentioned Smithville. Is that where you
I taught there 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you live in Smithville or do you live around here?
No, I've lived in Orville 54 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, Sam, do you have, like, at home, do you have a kiln and everything now that you do at home? Or?
Not now, I don't. I did, but when I taught, I could use the kiln at school, and I have for 32 years. I've been at the Smithville Community Historical Society, and we have a kiln there.
Okay, so if anybody would want to contact you about your pottery, how would they go about doing that?
Just probably come to the Smithville Community Historical Society, because I don't have my own shop.
Okay.
And I'm not teaching anymore. I haven't taught for really full-time for 20 years and part-time for 15 years. So I'm not teaching, and the only place I have to work is at the Smithville Historical Society, so that's the best place
Best place to find you.
to find me. And
All right. So, Sam, one question that we're asking everyone, since this is a library, are you currently reading anything right now, or what is your favorite book that you recommend to people?
well, I'd have to say over the years, lots of pottery books, Ceramics Monthly, just having taught, my textbooks that I've used over the 40 years that I've taught, actually 50 years now. So anything to do with pottery making. Of course, I taught photography for 40 years also. So photography, books, and magazines, and anything to do with art history. I taught art history for 40 years.
Wow.
So anything to do with art history.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here,
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah.
And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to what you're going to be bringing in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next two artists are both painters, Amy Slaybaugh, whose website can be found in the episode description, and Tia Dozie Smith, who is also an author. I am in awe of your paintings here. These are so gorgeous. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into painting, how you got into this art?
Well, I've been painting for most of my life, but it's just kind of been the last 10 years that I had the time and kind of the means to get into it more seriously. I didn't take any, professional lessons or anything, so I'm mostly self-taught. It's just something that I've always loved to do. So,
And are these acrylic or I'm guessing?
those are oil. The ones in the front are watercolor, and then these two are acrylic.
So we were talking to another painter who said that there's a lot of different technique to going between these styles. Do you find it easy to transition or?
I actually don't do a lot of acrylic anymore, so I mostly switched over to oil and watercolor. But yes, each medium has its own, skill set that it needs in order to make it work.
Is there anything that gives you particular inspiration?
Mostly nature, as you can probably tell by my paintings. Yes, I like soft colors. I like moody colors. And sometimes I will just see something and know instantly that I want to paint it.
So I see some mountains and forests. Are you from an area where these are, or are you from around Wayne County?
I'm local, but I like to travel, and I like to, take pictures when I do travel so that I can remember what I see.
Sure. And you have a calendar here. Is this all of your paintings on the calendar as well?
Yes.
That's fantastic. So if anybody was interested in getting any of your art or contacting you, how would they, do you have a social media or a phone number or anything?
I do. There's, I have a website and a phone number on my card.
Okay. Very good. Of course, we are standing here right next to the fiction section, so we're asking all of our artists, what are you reading right now, or do you have a favorite book?
I am an avid reader, so I have a lot of favorites, but currently I am reading The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson, I believe. So that's what I'm reading right now. It's really good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Tia Dozie Smith.
Yes.
And she is here with us today. So, Tia, we would like to know, what is your medium and how did you get into this?
Oh, gosh. Well, I have been painting for a long, long time. I come from a long line of artists. Recently, I have started, when the pandemic started, I started doing little paintings, and that kind of inspired me to do those. My medium is acrylic. And those are 6 by 6 inch paintings on MDF, which is about a ½ inch thick. They come with these little black easels and are always free shipping. And mostly I've been working on my children's books that I've been illustrating.
Okay, so how many books have you done so far?
I have written about a half a dozen books.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm working on my second one. The first one, Fish Wish, is available on Amazon. And I am working on Grow Dandelion Grow.
Okay, so the one that's available on Amazon right now is called Fish Wish.
It's called Fish Wish by Tia Smith.
Okay, did you So is it like a picture book?
It's a picture book. Ages 4 to 6, about 3 to 6 or so.
Okay. All right.
It's a be an early reader.
So what made you decide to branch out into writing?
I've kind of always written throughout the years, and then just I don't know. I got really creative working on that. I wasn't working on my paint when I was in Scotland, so I was writing a lot.
Oh, so what took you to Scotland?
Uh, well, way back when, I used to own a shop here in town called Scotland Yard, and I have Scottish heritage, and so I thought I'd go over for a few months. I went for 3 months, and I stayed for 3 years.
Oh, that's amazing. So where are you from now?
I moved back to Worcester. I
Okay.
live in Worcester. My daughter and her husband are here, and my 4 grandchildren. So I moved back to Worcester a few years ago, but I've lived in Phoenix, and then I lived in Scotland 3 years, and I lived in Portland, Oregon for a few years too.
So I got to ask, when you were in Scotland, did you pick up the accent while you were there?
No,
No?
no, but it's funny because they always think your American accent is so beautiful.
No, that is funny. Because I love Scottish
Yeah,
accent.
right.
So if somebody would want to find your artwork, now you mentioned Fish Wish, the book's on Amazon.
Yes.
How could they contact you for
My
your artwork?
website is tiasart.com.
Okay. That's
TIASART.
okay. That's very easy.
My Instagram is tiasart731.
Okay. So since we are at the library, we have been asking everybody, are you currently reading anything, or do you have a favorite book that you, or genre?
Oh my gosh, we're big avid readers, aren't we? I haven't been reading too much because I've been working so much. There's too many favorite books.
Sure.
To think of one.
Do you have a favorite genre?
When I was a young girl, about this age, I read Island of the Blue Dolphins, and that was just a beautiful, wonderful story.
So did that inspire you for Fish Wish?
A lot. Julia Donaldson. I'm sure you know her work. The Gruffalo and all those things. She inspired me. Axel, I think his name is Axel Shuffler, the artist that does the illustrations for her, and I'm always really inspired by his vibrant, colorful work.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here today, Tia.
Thank you so much
and
for
best
having
of luck
me.
with
All
your
right.
artwork and your book.
Thank
And
you.
we'll look forward to seeing that on Amazon.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
All
All right.
right.
Our final artist interview is with Dennis Lipp. Dennis has been creating art for several decades, and he was just a blast to talk to. So here's our interview with Dennis. So nice to meet you, Dennis.
Nice to meet you ladies, too. Thank you.
We're so glad that you're here today. We were both
Thank you.
immediately impressed when we walked up. You have this one very large painting.
Yes.
And what kind of paint is this? Acrylic or?
It's oils.
It's oils.
Oil on canvas.
I obviously have no idea.
That's okay. No, they look very similar.
Sure.
No problem.
Okay.
The reason why I chose oils on this, oils tend to be more pronounced looking when you're finished, kind of have a bolder look to them. It takes a lot for acrylics to get to that point, so I use oils, and it has more depth of color to it.
Do you find that you can like express what you want with oils better?
Either one. No, either
not
one.
necessarily.
This
Okay.
one right here is acrylic, and so I like both mediums.
So how long have you been painting?
I've been painting for probably, let's see, I'm 62, so I've painted since I was 11. So you could do the math. I guess that's 51 years. I
That
guess.
sounds like good math to me.
Okay. I'm never a good artist. I'm never a good mathematician. So
How big is this piece?
first of all, the painting is 6 feet across by 40 inches high. One of the bigger ones that I've ever painted. I've done murals bigger. I mean, I did a 35-foot mural for Six Flags. But as far as murals, as far as paintings that are for like hanging in galleries, this is about one of the bigger ones that I've ever done. It took me 16 years. I started in 2004 and finished it in 2020. And I put in almost 3,000 hours. This is talking about the Book of Revelation.
Okay.
And it's talking about the things that I believe are going to happen on the earth, and it's God's warning to an unbelieving world.
Just looking at each of the small parts of this big painting to see, how that could connect to different things. If
Yes.
you're like reading about, and that's a lot of time and thought and definitely a passion to put into
Yes, it was. Yes.
to making something like this. So I was going to ask you,
Yes.
are you local from the area?
Yes, I live in
You
Kidron.
are. Okay, very good. And if anybody were interested in any of your pieces, where would they be able to find you on social media or
Yes,
elsewhere?
I have 3 websites. One of them is Peace Like a River dash Fine Art, and the other 2 are DennisLip.com or Peace Like a River Fine Art straight through. It doesn't have a dash.
Okay. And Lip is LIPP.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay. So since we are standing in the library, we've asked all of our artists if there's anything particular you're reading right now or any favorite books that you have that you'd like to share.
Oh, isn't that interesting in the library? Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Probably it would it would be sounding very weird to the library what I have been reading. Let me see. One of them is I've been reading a book on dementia because my mom has dementia. Okay, but the second book I've been reading it's entitled "What Demons Can Do to Christians." Okay. That's the name of the book. What Demons Can Do to Christians. I read a lot of books at the same time.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, and so trying to think of any others those are on my coffee table,
All right.
if you will, or my nightstand.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us and for being here today.
Thank you so much, ladies. You've been very kind to me. Thank you for giving me the time.
Let's talk a little bit about some of our programs that we have coming up here at the library.
Exciting news this year for 2023. Cookbook Club is back in session. They will be meeting January 9th at 6 p.m. The cookbook that they will be using is Half Baked Harvest by Tegan Gerard.
And the regular book club, where you don't cook from a cookbook, is reading The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. Their first meeting of the year is on January 12th, and they're at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m.
Coffee and Crafts is meeting again on January 17th, and registration is open for both Coffee and Crafts and Book Club.
We will have Teen Book Box registration starting on January 16th, and that goes through the 28th, and that is to pick up book boxes in February.
Children's Winter Story Time registration is open now. This is a 6-week session. It starts on January 16th, and we have story times for babies all the way up through pre-K.
And of course, we're also very excited for our winter reading program, which goes through the whole month of January from the 1st to the 31st. We are going to be using Beanstack for that. So if you have a Beanstack profile, you can use the app or log your reading online. We also have paper log sheets. And winter reading is for all ages. We have programs for children where they can read and earn prizes, and teens and adults earn prize entries, so chances to win some cozy winter prizes. So bundle up with a good book and join our winter reading program. Jenny, do you have any fun things to wrap up with today?
Well, I just think that as we've talked about all these movies and these books, it's a great time to come in to the library and check them out. Or you can go online. Of course, a lot of these movies are streaming. Or you can go to the theater and watch one of these movies. But the most important thing is that you always read the book. Whether you read it before or after the movie, don't forget to read the book, because that's the most important thing. Reading, I think, isn't it?
For sure. So we want to thank you so much for listening to Beyond the Shelf with OPL. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Jenny.
And we hope to see you at the library soon.